Ladies, gents, boys and girls, Papa Smoke back again for another video. Okay, so I've recorded this one rather than going live on Facebook because I want to get some YouTube content out there as well. So, yes, YouTube. Yes, Facebook. Yes, social media, wagwan. Okay, so today's video is regarding the symbology of the cross and regarding the symbology of the crucifix. You see, I thought I'd make this video because, to be honest with you, there's a lot of misconceptions about this symbology out there. Usually by reverse Christian nutcases that try to say that it's a symbol of slavery or it's a racist symbol or XYZ. I've heard a number of slurs for it. But actually, what it represents is it represents the way between worlds. It represents the point where worlds collide, where the astral meets the physical, meets the etheric, meets the spiritual, etc., 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 where everything collides, where everything meets, yeah? Where everything meets. So it represents the crossroads, yeah? Right? Now, there are other examples of this in other faiths, such as I think it's the Celtic faith, for example, and there's the Celtic cross, which is again, the crossroads, the way between worlds. There's other examples of this in Vodou, for example. We use the cross and symbolise the cross as the way between worlds. And if you observe many veves either contain a cross or have lines that are crossed to actually symbolise the crossroads and the way between worlds and the point where things collide, basically, where the magic can happen, where you can step through the barrier. Yeah? Okay, so it's not an Abrahamic power symbol on its own. It is a power symbol, and it is one of the most powerful power symbols if you know how to work it correctly, which is why Abrahamic faiths such as Christianity adopted it, for example. It can be a very protective symbol as well. For example, in one of my live videos, I was talking about making a divine champion astral armor and empowering it with a solar cross, which is quite an extreme power symbol, but it's not Abrahamic. It doesn't mean you're subservient to any Abrahamic deity or any sort of Christian god. It's simply the way between worlds. Now, there are other examples of this in other faiths. For example, we've got the Ankh in the Egyptian faith, and that's sort of like, it's an esoteric symbol, and it's like a symbol for life. It kind of shows it has got the way between worlds in it, but it's got this like loop, kind of like, it's kind of like the circle of life kind of loop. It's like the way between worlds, but it symbolises life as well. Different parts of the loop may represent different things, but ideally it's to show the way between worlds, and on this plane to show like the circle of life. For some reason this has been adopted in the vampiric faith as well, and in actual vampiric energy healing they use what's called the Ankh of the Dead, which is something quite similar. So the cross itself isn't an Abrahamic power symbol. It is a power symbol, and it is one hell of a power symbol. It's one of the most important, one of the most powerful power symbols, but it is by no means solely Abrahamic. Displaying it, using it, working with it does not mean you're submitting to an Abrahamic deity. It does not mean you're betraying your demonic divine. You know, it doesn't mean anything other than you have recognised the power of the crossroads, basically, and of using that symbology in your workings, yeah? So I'm sick of seeing these reverse Christian motherfuckers out there, right? It's trying to say that it's something it's not, trying to say that it's a symbol of oppression, that it's a symbol of repression, it's a symbol of not being able to do and say what you want, when actually it's not. Because if you know how to work the crossroads correctly and you can work the crossroads successfully, you can do and say what you want, and even when life slaps you in the face, you can come up, you know what I mean, you can fall in shit and come out smelling of roses if you know how to work the crossroads correctly, right? To me, that's not a symbol of slavery or a symbol of repression. To me, that's a symbol of empowerment. You just need to know how to work it, which is why the major faiths use it, and it's probably why the major faiths have lasted so long, because they understood the esoteric meanings, the true esoteric meanings of ancient power symbols, as well as things like ancient words of power. So the misconception about the cross is completely bull, basically. It's a power symbol that can be used and found in all faiths, and it represents the way between worlds, the points where everything collides. You can even use it in planetary high magic. You can have like the crossroads to the universe, yeah? And that's like talking about some like interdimensional universal magic shit, you know what I mean? You can do it. There's the planetary crossroads as well, and these are all represented by crosses. There's solar crossroads that are represented by the solar cross, you know? So it's not by any means at all an Abrahamic power symbol. If it was solely Abrahamic power symbol, it wouldn't be found in magic, and it wouldn't be found in other spiritual crafts. So there we go. Now, looking at the symbol of the crucifix, people get this wrong. You see, it's not actually possible for somebody to be nailed to a cross. Their own body weight will rip them down. Eventually, it'll be quite a painful process, but their own body weight will rip them down or cause dislocation of the joints that will eventually cause dismemberment. So it's not actually possible to be nailed to a cross. But let's look at what the symbology of that actually means, right? Because this symbology, again, should be paid attention to across all crafts, because it echoes in a lot of crafts and in a lot of stories. You're just not seeing it, right? Okay, so he was crucified for the sins of man, yeah? Right? So if he were crucified for the sins of man, yeah, and you can't actually physically be crucified, let's look at what that means. He acted as a scapegoat. He took all the negative shit on his own shoulders, yeah, and let it destroy him, yeah. He acted as a scapegoat, basically, for mankind, and he took all the negative energy, all the sins. And sins doesn't just mean rules that you break or anything like that. You see, the definition of sin is a lot more deep and a lot more pure than the bastardized version of the King James Bible, like, well, fucking the bastardized version that is the King James Bible, sorry, goes on. You see, sin actually in itself means negative energy. That's negative energy whether it's an act that you've committed yourself, or whether it's an act that's committed against you, or whether it's how you feel. This is defined as true sin, yeah? So he took all that shit from mankind on his own shoulders and fucked himself up doing it, yeah? Right? So let's look at other crafts where this is prevalent. In the demonic divine, there's the sin-eating ritual of the sacred scapegoat, Azazel. Yeah? So basically, with the as above, so below factor, Azazel can do this too. Azazel can take all the sins of mankind on his shoulders, like basically just in the way that the crucifix represents. And indeed, in this ritual, you can use the crucifix to actually symbolise that without offending Azazel. In Vodou, we have Metcalfu. Metcalfu basically protects us from what people that are non-Vodou would define as karma. We don't fear karma. We understand the existence of a universal balance, and what you put out, eventually comes back to you. We understand this, but we also understand that initiated Vaudouisants are protected by Metcalfu in this way, that when the fuckery comes back to us, he bears that on his shoulders. He bears the sins on his shoulders. Yes, when we die, we may have to learn a few lessons, but there's no overall judgment or punishment for this. If we learn our lessons from it while we're alive, then we've learned our lessons. There's not a lesson to learn, but he bears that for us. So the symbol of the crucifix is basically looking at the way between worlds, right, and looking at it from a deeper, more spiritual aspect, looking at the fuckery coming from the way between worlds that you've drawn to yourself, yeah, or that you've manifested yourself, or that has been pushed upon you, yeah. And the symbology of the crucifix is actually protecting you from that fuckery, yeah. So if you use that symbology in your work and in your displays and in your altars, yeah, you're not actually offending the demonic divine, you're not actually offending the Abrahamic divine, and you're not actually offending the Loa. These can be used to symbolise that you are protected from this fuckery. I'm going to acquire one for Carfu's altar. I don't have one on Carfu's altar at the minute, but I'm going to acquire one for Carfu's altar. I have one on my private altar upstairs for Baron Samedi, because it represents the way between worlds, and he loves the cross symbology. So yeah, this is a quick one. I just wanted to basically say it and get it off my chest, because like I said, I'm sick of reverse Christian motherfuckers spitting on the cross and spitting on the crucifix, yeah, just because they've been brainwashed by their religious parents from the new version of the Bible that's not even prevalent, spiritual or real. Do you know what I mean? The symbology and things that are mentioned go a lot deeper than y'all can find on YouTube, or than y'all can find on Google or whatever like this. You have to understand this craft, and you have to pick it up, and you have to learn it correctly and research it, and stop spitting on things, right? Stop talking down about like religion and stuff like that, right? I'm not a religious person myself, yeah, but what you need to understand is that hate begets hate, yeah? So talking down on stuff like this, yeah, is only going to prove the people right that are hating on you anyway for being different, yeah? So hate begets hate. You put that out there and it's going to come back on you, yeah? Especially if you don't understand how to work things like the symbology of the crucifix to protect you from the fuckery that comes back, yeah? So instead of putting hate out, just put acceptance out. All right, that's not for me. I accept you believe that. Cool. On your jog. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, that's it. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which don't leave you with the right lot. Have a good one. Papa Smoke out. I Bobo.